So if I'm a Gen Z entering the professional workforce, right, what are the ways in which companies can help build a set of these skills, right? I don't even know if I can call them skills, but maybe just the competency over a career. And yeah, what approach, what have you seen?
Yeah, I think that's what you said at the beginning really resonated with me about it's not enough just to travel, for instance. I think a lot of people that I met in my work inside a corporation, which was a very international organization. We were in 190 countries. I had, when I was there, a large number of people, 450,000 people in 190 countries. And I was traveling around a lot. And there's this sort of business traveler thing where people go around and they think actually, oh, I'm sort of super intercultural because I've traveled to all these places. I mean, at the high point, I was going to 3 different continents in a week, and I didn't actually know where I was really. One time I went to Sao Paulo and then back to Munich and then to Hong Kong, and I was completely jet lagged. It was sort of exciting, but it was crazy. And I wouldn't pretend that I know about Brazil or China from that experience. Yeah. But I think people sometimes make that mistake of equating that. Of course, this experience is really valuable, but it's really a question of what you do with that experience. And that's where I think it's very important to connect that with learning. And this is what many companies do, to create ways of learning through formal training and education. And I would hope that somebody of that generation, you would look for a company perhaps which is offering you learning opportunities. And the learning doesn't have to be formal training. It can also be like mentoring. You can work together with somebody, for instance, from a different generation. I mean, I found that great before I left the company that I was working for. The last 2 years, I wanted to make a handover of my topic, which was intercultural training, to a younger colleague. And my boss, I think it was very good. He put us together. I found it very, very interesting also for me. And she said she appreciated it. She came with a lot of new ideas, and I came with my experience. And so this sort of peer learning from your peers, learning on the job is very important. The other thing which is really very central in my book, which really in a way trains this, and I would call it a skill, is training yourself to reflect on those experiences and reflect on your own reaction. So what I use in the book is an approach I call the OAR approach, which is OAR. So I say to people, first of all, you need to really focus on your observation skills. So when you're dealing with people who are different from yourself, either from different countries or just different in generation or different region or just different from you or different gender, try to observe how things are, observe what's happening before you start coming to some conclusion. Because often we're actually triggered by people's behavior and it sets off some emotions perhaps, and then we react and we evaluate and say, oh, that person was rude. That's what often people say about Germans. They say, oh, they're rude. Well, they might be rude to you, but actually they would consider it to be honest and direct. And my British friends always are very polite, and they think that's good to be polite, but the Germans say we never know what they think. And this is an issue that many have with India. Germans say the Indians always say yes, and then nothing happens, and and they nod their head in a strange way, and we're not sure what's going on. So observe, first of all. Second one, A, is for analyze. Then you can start thinking about, well, what's behind this? Is it a difference in communication style? Or is it something to do with this individual? Maybe they are a difficult individual. Maybe they are rude. But is it something deeper than that? And maybe it's something to do with the fact that actually, for instance, in Germany, often people are quite direct in their communication. Not all the time, but that's a tendency. And the last stage is to really reflect and recommend. So reflecting on this, thinking, okay, how did that affect me? And recommending either to yourself or to other people, what can we do about that? And so if for instance, the German finds the British too polite, I train them to ask some questions. Well, what do you mean by that when you say my talk was interesting? And what was interesting about it? Right. And they find out if it really was interesting or if it was just a polite phrase. Or if the Indian says yes, then to ask them, well, when will you deliver it? Or tell me what you're going to be doing next week. And they go, oh, I'm on holiday. Well, then, they're not going to be doing it. And yes doesn't mean yes. So I hope I don't want to stereotype Indians, but that's just something I've heard so often from my German colleagues. So I think it's those 3 things: experience, So try to get into as many contact with as many people who are different from yourself as you can. Go to lunch with people who basically you think at first sight there's someone who's completely alien to me. Go do it and have a tea or a coffee or something with them, and then use learning opportunities, and also then take the time out to reflect. And unfortunately, the last phase is what people often neglect because they're very busy and they just keep going. But I think that's a very valuable thing. And as I say, I give some tips for that in the book about how you can do that. And there are exercises to practice that. It's a bit like actually sport. It's not, as you said at the beginning, it's not a one-off thing. You say, okay, today I want to run the marathon, and I go to the fitness studio and do half an hour on the treadmill. That's not going to make me run the marathon. I need to train over a very long time to do that. And intercultural competence development is a lifetime thing. The last point I want to make is actually about companies. Companies now are doing something quite interesting. I think it's been accelerated by the pandemic, but it was happening before that. And that's they call it learning ecosystems. So they're setting up structures for learning. And this can be web-based, of course. So at Siemens, we had something called the Learning World, where we had different topics. And we put all the resources for that topic onto a platform. So the resources could be training modules, could be videos, could be articles, could be interviews with people, could be best practice. But it can also be just a list of names of people you could contact to get some sparring partner to talk to inside the company. Or it could be if you want to book a training program or a formal coaching or something. But a lot of it was happening outside of that formal training situation.